Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, it's October 6th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. One of the largest school districts in the county is doing an about-face. Instead of students returning to school as planned, they'll have to wait at least until the new year. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne has our report.
Parents wishing that the Chula Vista Elementary School District would be reopening campuses as of October 26th saw their hopes dashed Monday at a district-wide town hall meeting. District leaders said the opening will be further delayed, perhaps until the end of the calendar year.
Hopefully we'll be able to open up a little bit later during the year and, definitely I'll be every week I'm monitoring those rates. With the help of the San Diego County of Education and the Public Health Department. And, and hopefully when we see, a significant trend downwards, we can start our reopening plan. I pray for very soon.
Although some school districts in San Diego County are sticking with partial reopening plans, Superintendent Escobedo says Chula Vista has to take a more cautious approach because zip codes in the district continue to have some of the highest rates of COVID-19 infections in the county. Melissa Ceja, a mom who works as an emergency responder, has had to juggle her work and assisting her kids with distance learning. She expressed frustration about the schools not reopening and is now considering homeschooling.
Right now, I'm feeling there's more damage being done to my child's educational needs and mental health than keeping him home. We know how to take the precautions, wash hands. He knows that he would have to wear a mask all day. We definitely take it serious, but I just don't think we're in a lifestyle that we can't put these restrictions because it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Superintendent Escobedo added that about 1,200 of the neediest students in the elementary school district have returned to in-person learning. These are students who are in the foster care system, homeless, or in a domestic violence facility.
I want to open the schools up as soon as I can. I just want to make sure that we have all our safeguards ready and the rates definitely can lower a little bit more significantly. And, we definitely are continually improving our distance learning approach.
Escobedo said that if COVID rates decrease, school reopenings will be reconsidered, but at this time does not want to give parents false hope. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
San Diego County is remaining in the red tier 2, where we've been for the last several weeks. Today, 3 additional deaths and 161 new COVID-19 cases were reported by the county. The California Health and Human Services Secretary put our county's case rate at 6.5. That is slightly lower than last week, but still not good enough to move us to a less restrictive tier. This week, the CDC revised its guidance, saying that coronavirus can be spread through the air. Dr. Mark Galley says the state has long emphasized outdoor activities over indoor.
For the time being, we still continue to emphasize that remaining physically distanced, doing things outdoors when possible, wearing your face covering throughout your interactions as much as you can as the key strategies to reducing transmission.
The CDC guidelines were updated to say transmissions can happen in enclosed, poorly ventilated spaces, and that activities like exercising or singing can increase the likelihood. President Trump is pulling the plug on stimulus negotiations, tweeting that he's ending talks. As Mandy Gaither reports, it comes as the 7-day average of new coronavirus cases is on the rise in 22 states.
A day after getting out of Walter Reed Hospital, being treated for COVID-19,
President Trump announced he's ending stimulus talks, tweeting, "I have instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election when, immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill that focuses on hardworking Americans and small business." In response, Democrats are hitting back hard. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying, "Today, once again, President Trump showed his true colors, putting himself first at the expense of the country. Clearly, the White House is in complete disarray." This as the number of coronavirus cases are climbing from Vermont to Michigan, Texas to New York.
We are at a crucial moment in this city.
In New York City, schools in some neighborhoods closed less than a week after reopening, as city leaders try to get ahead of a worrisome spread of COVID-19. Mayor Bill de Blasio also proposing closures of some non-essential businesses in the hotspot zip code, saying the tough restrictions are nothing the city wants, but effectively what it needs.
We have to get ahead of this. We have to bring everything to bear we can.
Mandy Gaither, KPBS News.
President Trump's senior advisor and speechwriter has the coronavirus. Stephen Miller tested positive today after a previous negative test. He boarded Marine One last week along with Hope Hicks, who was the first of more than a dozen aides and associates to catch the virus. Miller is responsible for the administration's restrictive immigration measures. Protesters gathered at the Otay Mesa detention facility today to call on Governor Gavin Newsom to stop the transfers of detainees and release those at risk of contracting COVID-19. Here's KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer.
Pueblos Sin Fronteras and Borderlands for Equity were two activist groups who led the protests at the Otay Mesa Detention Center, which houses federal detainees. Banners were also placed in over 30 locations throughout California today as a statewide call to action for Governor Newsom.
We're calling on Gavin Newsom to stop ICE transfers and to stop all transfers between California prisons and jails and all transfers from people outside from prisons to ICE facilities.
Another goal of the statewide protest is to hold private prison companies accountable for any medical abuses or harmful neglect of detainees.
We are still in the midst of this, in the depths of this pandemic, and the proper PPE material, the proper medical care still has yet to be received here. So we knew that we had to do something that will take the attention of our community. And Governor Gavin Newsom is just as good as anybody to get attention and rename this facility for the death camp and the concentration camp. It really is.
According to ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, 169 people have contracted COVID at the Otay Mesa Detention Center. In May, a 57-year-old Salvadoran man died after he contracted COVID-19 at Otay Mesa. A former detainee recalled her experience inside the private detention facility.
My scariest thought was not making it out alive and seeing my 2-year-old son again. Unfortunately, my family is undocumented, so due to that, they weren't able to visit me very much. I am, like them, still detained in this detention center. I won't feel free until they're all free.
Other banner drops in San Diego County were held at the highway overpass at the San Ysidro border by the outlets and at the Church of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Logan Heights. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
The Trump administration is looking at spending millions of dollars to paint part of the border wall black as the president requested. That's according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials. The section of wall that could get repainted stretches 82 miles in the Rio Grande Valley and Laredo, Texas. It could cost an extra $1 million per mile to paint it. The agency says it would add a contrast against the natural surroundings of the area. As the pandemic and economic downturn continue, communities are seeing an increase in mental illness and addiction. As KPBS reporter Max Rivlin Nadler shows us, a group in City Heights is going online to meet with people in crisis.
Before the COVID-19 pandemic, almost everyone seeking addiction services at La Maestra Community Health Center came here along Fairmont Avenue. But since the pandemic necessitated social distancing, almost all of those services have gone online.
We would help people coming in for assessments, follow-ups.
Dr. Mario Salguero practices psychiatry and addiction medicine at La Maestra Community Health Centers. He says things used to be different.
Telehealth or non-in-person services would be 1% or less. It was rare.
Most of the patients Dr. Salguero sees are from the surrounding community, and they had been receiving in-person treatments, either in a group or one-on-one, regularly.
At the core of substance use disorder issues is isolation. You may be around people, you may be even in a session with a therapist, a provider in person, but not being able to connect is an essential problem there.
But the COVID-19 pandemic, which has increased both social isolation and economic suffering for people, has only worsened the country's mental health and substance abuse crisis.
Anxiety issues have tripled. Depression has more than doubled.
So Dr. Salguero and the rest of the addiction team at La Maestra, which sees hundreds of patients, shifted over 70% of their patients to telehealth.
People, knew we were there. We were able to reach out to them. For our sakes as well, staff, we care for our patients. We care for the people we help out. And also, it was a huge concern. How can we continue to help all these people out? Sometimes we need to see people weekly to make sure they're doing well.
Using a system called NextGen, patients are able to use a web browser to chat with their doctors. And if they lack access to reliable internet or a smartphone, they can come into a room at the clinic on Fairmount Street and speak to their doctor safely through an iPad. Dr. Salguero says that even after the end of the pandemic, he wants to make sure the telehealth option sticks around, especially for those who face barriers to traveling to the clinic.
Missing appointments has dropped, which is great because we've been able to access so many more people, not only our usual, say, people in the area, but even people in areas that are farther away from us. So being able to reach more people has been, a good surprise.
Dr. Salguero says that for anyone in San Diego dealing with depression, anxiety, or addiction issues, help is out there, and he encourages people to seek it out through the La Maestra website. Max Rivlin-Adler, KPBS News.
Over the weekend, the Hillcrest community was hit with a case of vandalism that left behind a hate symbol on the sidewalk. But as video journalist Andy Duckleth explains, one local artist took immediate action.
I decided to have a really good day.
JJ Floyd was looking forward to checking out one of the Hillcrest shops on 5th Street last Saturday.
And as I'm walking down the sidewalk, I see a man with black paint in his cart.
He looked down and saw this.
A swastika on the sidewalk. When I realized what it was and that it was actually real, I was like, I should probably stay here.
This is bad, my friend.
He talked to the man, even trying to convince him to cover it up.
Okay, so I'm just asking you if you could kindly wipe off that.
Shocking as the scene was, what alarmed Floyd even more was how business as usual everyone else seemed to be.
People would look down at it and then recognize what it is, but then continue to walk.
So he decided to do something about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get some paint.
With the help of a few friends and local business owners, they were able to turn the unsightly graffiti into something positive. The hate symbol now covered by love, literally. But as positive as that may be, Floyd says we need to be better about not staying passive when faced with scenarios like this.
For me, it was more devastating how dismissive and how complacent people were when we allow things like this to go unresolved. That's when people are encouraged to continue to do it.
Andy Duckleth, KPBS News.
Two Democrats are facing off for the 53rd congressional seat next month. Sarah Jacobs is a childhood anti-poverty advocate who is the granddaughter of Qualcomm co-founder Irwin Jacobs. And we need to disclose that he is a major supporter of KPBS. Jacobs' opponent is current City of San Diego Council President Georgette Gomez. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman introduces us to the candidates.
A lot has changed for both candidates since campaigning in the March primary when the nation was not facing pandemic restrictions. Sarah Jacobs says it's not so easy without a lot of face-to-face contact.
We're phone banking, getting creative, doing Zoom events, and just trying to find ways to connect with people virtually.
Georgette Gomez says her campaign has also been leveraging technology to reach voters.
Texting, communicating with voters through social media, and utilizing the power of social media.
The two Democrats are vying to replace another Democrat, Representative Susan Davis, who is retiring from her 53rd seat after 20 years.
I consider myself a practical progressive, and I know that the only way we're ever able to get anything done, but especially in Washington, is by building coalitions.
Jacobs worked in the State Department during the Obama administration.
I think that a lot of voters really value the fact that I have experience working in the federal government, working on federal policy issues, that I have experience on both the domestic and international issues that will be coming in front of Congress.
Gomez says voters need someone who understands them at a personal level, and says because she grew up poor, she can relate to people going through tough times.
I've personally lived housing insecurity at one time in my life, growing up pretty humbly with very little resources, having parents that had multiple jobs, but they still, at the end of the day, we were living paycheck by paycheck.
Gomez considers herself a progressive, but says her time on city council proves that she can work with Republicans, like San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer.
We introduced the eviction moratorium, protecting renters in our businesses. We created, along with the mayor, we created a business relief program.
Both candidates say COVID-19 relief for businesses and individuals will likely be a major priority for the next Congress. They say the CARES Act, which brought stimulus checks and money for struggling businesses, was a good start.
It's clear we need a lot more, and I have been really disappointed that Congress hasn't passed another assistance package.
I truly am hoping that they move forward, that they can put the division to the side, because this is not the time to be playing politics. This is the time where we need to lead.
It's no secret there's a lack of affordable housing in San Diego, and our county has one of the highest homeless populations in the nation. To address the housing crisis, Jacob wants to provide emergency assistance in the form of housing vouchers and rental aid, increase our federal homeless dollars, and add a rental tax credit.
So that any family who pays more than 30% of their income on rent gets assistance through the tax code. Then we need to build more affordable housing.
Decisions about how and where to build that affordable housing are largely in the hands of local governments, some of which have been resistant to new units.
What we can do at the federal level is leverage public dollars to incentivize and push for more private investment.
Whether it's building low-income units or housing for people who are homeless, Gomez says it starts with hearing from the community.
You need to make sure that you're out there talking to your constituents and saying this is why it's important that we make our backyard available. People want us to resolve the issue related to people living in the streets, but the only way we're going to resolve it is not through rocket science. We need to build units. We need to ensure that we have the necessary resources, and that's where Congress needs to come in to ensure that we have the support.
Addressing climate change is also something on both candidates' agendas. Gomez says she supports Governor Gavin Newsom's recent executive order for all new cars in California to be zero emissions by 2035.
That's something that we should be, as congressional members, we should be thinking about adopting as well. It should be a national model.
Jacob says Newsom's mandate has to be doable, and she wants to see an entirely energy clean economy by 2030.
I think we need huge investments in new green technology.
A poll from last month shows Jacobs with a double-digit lead over Gomez, but in that same poll, nearly 40% of voters who responded were still undecided. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The results of the election will undoubtedly bring vast changes to the region's leadership, and after almost 3 decades, East County will finally see a change. I talked with both candidates to bring you this update on the race for the District 2 seat on the San Diego County Board of Supervisors.
Former State Senator Joel Anderson led in the primaries with almost 7,500 more votes than Poway Mayor Steve Voss. They're both Republicans running in a historically red district. What sets them apart, they say, is their performance record as public servants.
I think the distinctions between myself and my opponent could be summed up with 3 things: track record, temperament, and trust. As far as track record, I'm the only candidate with executive experience in running a jurisdiction. And I think I've been pretty successful.
Voss points to his county-wide bipartisan endorsements, including from outgoing Supervisor Diane Jacob. His priorities include public safety, infrastructure, and expanding open space. Anderson touts his experience in the minority party in Sacramento.
You know, in the time I had in the legislature, I did over 450 bills across party lines. I either joint or co-authored with my Democrat colleagues. If you added all the Republicans I served with, collectively, I did more bills with Democrats than all of them combined.
Anderson is endorsed by the San Diego County Republican Party. His priorities include road improvements, housing attainability, and career opportunities in the county. And you can check out our voter guide at kpbs.org/election. You can also research your ballot specific to your address and learn more about the propositions, the measures, and the candidates. Legendary rock guitarist Eddie Van Halen has died from cancer. His band, Van Halen, is known for hits like Panama and Jump. Rolling Stone magazine put him at number 8 in its list of the 100 greatest guitarists. His band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. Eddie Van Halen was 65 years old.
Our cooling trend continues, quite comfortable here right through the end of the week. If the onshore flow of the marine layer is going to be deepening, becoming more extensive, so we'll see more in the way of nighttime and morning low clouds and some areas of fog. Then by the weekend, a strong trough moves into the west coast, and that could bring us a couple of showers. A couple of showers possible from Friday night into Sunday. Many areas will escape the precipitation, but it does look like our first rainmaker of the fall season on the way. Some showers are expected. As we take a look at our temperatures tonight, cooling down to 54 in Oceanside, San Diego 65, the clouds rolling in. Escondido 56, Ramona 51, and El Cajon at 62. Now for tomorrow, we continue to have that onshore flow, so comfortable here. Still warm in the interior. Temperatures still well above average as we take you from the deserts eastward. And as we take a look at our weather, lots of sunshine to be had. Borrego Springs 102, Mount Laguna 74, Campo 89. Above average temperatures still here, Ramona and El Cajon. Average highs this time of year, lower 80s, and it will be in the upper 70s, San Diego up towards Oceanside. Further cooling spreading inland here Thursday and into Friday and Saturday with this deep trough. That could give us our shower chances over the weekend, the main thrust of the rain farther north. As we take a look at our extended forecast, comfortable clouds and sunshine near the coast. Inland areas, temperatures dropping a little bit below average. So it'll be nice here, clouds and sunshine. In the mountains, we will cool it off. And as we take you to the deserts here too, temperatures dropping to average and a little bit below end of the week and into the weekend. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
The Padres' playoff push continues tonight against their biggest rival, the LA Dodgers. Mike Clevinger, the star pitcher who joined the team in August, is back from injury and will start Game 1. The game is being held in Arlington, Texas, one of the neutral sites chosen. The Padres and Dodgers will play a best-of-5 series to advance one step closer to that World Series. A San Diego filmmaker's vampire comedy will make its world premiere at Screamfest LA next week. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando has a first look at Things We Dig.
Pia Thrasher didn't realize she had an obsession with horror until somebody pointed out that she was like Wednesday Addams in the Addams Family.
And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said that, well, your dad made tombstones for a living, and he had tombstones all over the front yard and the backyard. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I think to me it was always normal to deal with the dark side, the death, the unspoken. And we always had, people come to my dad's house to talk about the funeral. And so I grew up with it. And to me it was normal.
So Thrasher embraced darker things.
It made me think more. It made me focus on my own dark side, because we all have one. Some suppress it more than others, which is not good for you. You have to let it out.
Which Thrasher does through her artwork and now her films. Things We Dig is a vampire comedy inspired by the mockumentary film and TV series What We Do in the Shadows.
I just loved it. I loved the whole format, the whole idea about just a bunch of ordinary vampires living together and having to deal with regular life stuff. And it made me think, God, what would it be like for 4 female vampires with all their female issues, or whatever you want to call it, living together and dealing with the now, modern times.
For full disclosure, I've known Thrasher for years because we bonded over our love for horror and Halloween. When Thrasher was in pre-production for the film, she posted on Facebook that she needed some very specific props.
I knew I needed a coffin, and I needed a child-size coffin.
And as a home haunter, I actually had both.
You saved my day, and I came over to your place, and you had this plywood child-sized coffin. It was perfect, but it was very plain. So we knew we were going to have to dress it up a little bit.
Thrasher gave the items to her production designer, Elsa Mikkelsen, who worked her magic to turn it into an ornate resting place for a young vampire girl. Mikkelsen also designed costumes, built a vampire coven in her house, and just elevated the production value of the entire film. While Mikkelsen worked on making the film look good, Thrasher took on the challenge of getting the tone right.
That was hard because, first of all, you have to find a balance of creepy and humor, and it turned out to be a little bit more funny than creepy.
Things We Dig was a 4-year journey for Thrasher, but it's finally paying off with acceptance at multiple horror festivals, both in the U.S. and around the globe. But the world premiere will be next Tuesday at Screamfest LA's drive-in venue in Van Nuys. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.